My mother cut me out of her inheritance because of my marriage. Last week, she found out who pays for her nursing home. Nothing prepared me for the look on her face when she realized I controlled her future. If you enjoy family drama, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that'll make your own family seem normal. I never planned to be estranged from my mother. Growing up in a small Connecticut town, I was the dutiful daughter who followed all the rules. Mom had my life mapped out with military precision. Prestigious college, respectable career, marriage to someone from the right family. For 18 years, I played my part perfectly. When I left for college, the script continued. I studied finance at Princeton, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and joined all the clubs Mom suggested would open doors. I called home every Sunday at exactly 6 p.m. I spent holidays attending stuffy parties where Mom paraded me around like a show pony to her country club friends. Sophia's interning at Wellington Capital this summer, she'd boast, her hand gripping my shoulder just a little too tight. What Mom didn't know was that during my senior year, I had started dating a teaching assistant from my economics seminar. Ethan wasn't part of the plan. He came from rural Pennsylvania, the son of a mechanic and a kindergarten teacher. He wore secondhand blazers to class and drove a beat-up Honda that made concerning noises at highway speeds. But he was brilliant, kind, and made me laugh like no one else could. For 8 months, I kept him secret. We'd meet in coffee shops 2 towns over, take weekend trips where we'd register at hotels under my roommate's name. I knew what would happen if Mom found out, and I wasn't ready for the fallout. The secret ended when Mom made a surprise visit to campus during finals week of my senior year. She wanted to discuss the job offers I'd received, all at prestigious firms she'd approved of, naturally. She arrived at my apartment unannounced, using the key I'd given her for emergencies. Ethan and I were sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and takeout containers, his hand casually resting on mine. "Who is this?" Mom's voice cut through the apartment like ice. "Mom, this is Ethan. I'm Sophia's boyfriend," Ethan said, standing and extending his hand. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mom ignored his outstretched hand, her eyes flicking from his worn jeans to his faded t-shirt. "Boyfriend?" She said the word like it tasted bad. "Sophia hasn't mentioned any boyfriend to me." The conversation that followed was excruciating. Mom asked probing questions about Ethan's family, his prospects, his 5-year plan. Each answer made her expression harden further. When she learned he planned to pursue a PhD in economics with hopes of teaching, rather than entering the lucrative world of investment banking or hedge funds, I saw the exact moment she decided he wasn't good enough. "Sophia, I need to speak with you, alone." Mom's tone left no room for argument. In my bedroom, with the door firmly closed, she unleashed. "What are you thinking? You're about to graduate from Princeton, for God's sake. You have offers from Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. This is not the time to waste your potential on some scholarship boy with patches on his elbows. He's brilliant, Mom. He's been published in economic journals. His dissertation advisor thinks he could win a Nobel Prize someday. Nobel Prizes don't pay for vacation homes in the Hamptons, Sophia. I don't care about vacation homes in the Hamptons." The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. Mom's face went completely blank, the way it always did when she was truly angry. "Clearly, I've failed to instill proper values in you," she said coldly. "Your father would be so disappointed. Dad had passed away when I was 12. Mom had been wielding his hypothetical disappointment as a weapon ever since." "Don't bring Dad into this," I said, my voice shaking. "You have no idea what he would think. I knew your father for 23 years. You had him for 12. Don't presume to tell me what he would think." The conversation deteriorated from there. Mom issued an ultimatum: end things with Ethan, accept the offer from Goldman Sachs, and move into the apartment she'd already picked out for me in Manhattan, or face the consequences. "What consequences?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your father left a considerable estate, Sophia. Most of it is in trusts that I control until you're 35. Make the wrong choice here, and you'll be on your own financially." It wasn't the first time Mom had used money to control me, but it was the most explicit threat she'd ever made. Something inside me snapped. "Keep the money," I said quietly. I choose Ethan. Mom left without another word. She didn't attend my graduation 2 weeks later. When I tried calling on our usual Sunday, the number had been changed. The monthly allowance that had appeared in my bank account since Dad died stopped coming. I moved with Ethan to Michigan, where he'd accepted a position as a doctoral candidate. We rented a tiny apartment off campus, and I took a job at a local investment firm. The salary was a fraction of what I would have made at Goldman Sachs, but it was enough. We were happy. 3 months after graduation, a package arrived containing all my childhood photos, my birth certificate, and a few personal items I'd left at home. There was no note. And that was it. 4 years of complete silence followed. No birthday cards, no Christmas calls, nothing. It was like my mother had died. Except occasionally, I'd see her name mentioned in the society pages of the Connecticut newspaper I still checked online sometimes. Mrs. Eleanor Morgan attends charity gala. Mrs. Eleanor Morgan chairs hospital fundraiser. Life had gone on for her, just without a daughter. During those years, Ethan and I built our life together. I was promoted twice. He completed his PhD and accepted an assistant professor position. We bought a small house with a garden where I grew tomatoes and herbs. We got married in a simple ceremony at the botanical gardens, surrounded by friends who had become our chosen family. My boss walked me down the aisle. No one from my side of the family attended. I told myself I was fine with the estrangement, that I didn't miss Mom or the life I'd left behind. Most days, I even believed it. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in October when my phone rang with an unfamiliar Connecticut number. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was a telemarketer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Sophia Morgan?" a formal male voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is Bradford Whitaker, your mother's attorney. I'm afraid I have some difficult news." My stomach dropped. Despite everything, my first thought was that she had died. Instead, Mr. Whitaker informed me that Mom had suffered a severe stroke. She was stable but had significant impairments. She needed full-time care and would be moving to an assisted living facility. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice hollow. There was an uncomfortable pause. "Well, Ms. Morgan, your mother's financial situation is complicated. The estate has faced some difficulties in recent years. Bad investments, market downturns. The house has been sold to cover medical expenses, but the ongoing costs of the facility," he cleared his throat. "You are listed as her next of kin and medical proxy. And given the financial circumstances, I thought you should be aware of the situation." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had threatened to cut me off financially was now potentially dependent on me. I could have laughed if it wasn't so sad. "I'll need to discuss this with my husband," I said, which was true, but also gave me time to process. "Of course. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. The facility needs a financial guarantor by the end of the week." After hanging up, I sat motionless at our kitchen table until Ethan came home. He found me still sitting there, staring at nothing. "Soph? What's wrong?" I told him everything. About the stroke, the financial problems, the decision looming before me. When I finished, I expected him to be angry, or at least remind me of how Mom had treated us. Instead, he sat across from me and took my hands in his. "What do you want to do?" he asked simply. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to say it's not my problem. She made her choice when she cut me out. But another part still loves her," Ethan finished. I nodded, tears filling my eyes for the first time since the call. "Is that stupid? After everything she did?" "It's not stupid. She's your mom. It's complicated." We stayed up late that night, going over our finances. Ethan had just received tenure, and my career was going well, but taking on the cost of an upscale assisted living facility would be a significant burden. We'd need to postpone our plans to start a family, maybe take out a second mortgage on our house. "We can make it work," Ethan said finally. "If this is what you want to do." "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "But I know I can't leave her with nowhere to go." The next day, I called Mr. Whitaker back and told him I would cover the costs of my mother's care. He seemed relieved, but not surprised, as if he'd calculated the odds of my compliance and found them favorable. "There is one more thing," he said. "Your mother still has her faculties, despite the physical limitations. She's aware of the financial situation and has been informed that you will be covering the expenses. And? And she's refusing to see you. She's been quite adamant about it, actually." I let out a bitter laugh. "Of course she is. I thought you should know before making any arrangements to visit. Thank you for the warning." Despite her refusal, I flew to Connecticut the following week. I needed to see the facility, meet with her doctors, and sign the necessary paperwork. Part of me also hoped that maybe, faced with the reality of seeing me in person, Mom might soften her stance. Ridgewood Care Center was exactly what you'd expect from an upscale facility in wealthy Connecticut. Tasteful decor that attempted to mask the institutional nature of the place, well-dressed elderly residents being guided through activities by cheerful staff, the faint smell of disinfectant beneath expensive air fresheners. The director, Dr. Abernathy, met me in her office. She was a brisk woman in her 50s with a practiced, compassionate expression. "Your mother is making progress physically," she explained. "The stroke affected her left side, so she's using a wheelchair for now, though we hope with therapy she'll regain some mobility. Her speech is somewhat affected, but her cognitive functions are intact." "And she's still refusing to see me?" Dr. Abernathy's expression turned apologetic. "I'm afraid so. We've explained that you're the one making her stay here possible, but she's quite stubborn." "That's one word for it," I muttered. "Perhaps give her some time to adjust. This has been a significant change for her." I nodded, though I had little hope that time would make a difference. This was the woman who had maintained a 4-year silence because I'd chosen my own path in life. After signing what felt like 100 forms, I was shown to a small waiting area while the final paperwork was processed. That's when I saw her. Mom was being wheeled down the hallway by an aide, returning from what looked like a physical therapy session. She was thinner than I remembered, her once immaculate hair now completely gray and cut in a practical short style. The left side of her face drooped slightly, and her left arm lay limp in her lap. But what struck me most was how small she looked. My mother had always been a commanding presence, tall and regal. Now she seemed diminished, hunched in the wheelchair, her former confidence gone. Before I could decide whether to approach her or hide, she turned her head and our eyes met. For a moment, there was a flash of something, recognition, emotion. I couldn't tell. Then her face hardened into a mask of indifference, and she deliberately turned away, saying something to the aide who picked up pace and wheeled her quickly past me. The encounter lasted less than 10 seconds, but it left me shaking. I completed the remaining paperwork on autopilot, provided my credit card information for the monthly charges, and left without attempting to see her again. On the flight home, I cried silently while staring out the window at the clouds below. Not because she had rejected me again, I had expected that, but because for the first time, I could see that my mother was human, flawed, vulnerable, and now dependent on the very person she had tried to control and then discard. I didn't know if that made things better or worse. Life settled into a new normal. Every month, the substantial charge from Ridgewood appeared on our credit card statement. Every month, I called Dr. Abernathy for an update on Mom's condition. And every month, I asked if she had changed her mind about seeing me. The answer was always no. We adjusted our lifestyle to accommodate the new expense. Vacations became staycations. We ate out less, saved more. Ethan took on additional teaching during summer sessions. I requested more clients at work and started doing financial consulting on the side. Friends who knew our situation thought I was crazy. "Why are you doing this?" my closest friend Rachel asked over coffee one day. "She disowned you. She doesn't even want to see you. Why bankrupt yourself for someone who treated you that way?" I didn't have a good answer. Because she's my mom didn't seem sufficient, but it was the truth. Despite everything, there was still that primal connection. And maybe, buried beneath my practical reasons, There was a childish hope that my sacrifice would finally make her love me the way I had always wanted to be loved. 6 months after Mom's stroke, I received an unexpected call from Ridgewood. It was Nurse Jenkins, one of Mom's regular caregivers. "Ms. Morgan, I probably shouldn't be calling you directly, but I thought you should know. Your mother's been asking questions about you." My heart skipped. "What kind of questions?" "About your job, your home. She saw the return address on the birthday card you sent and asked about Michigan. She wanted to know if I'd ever spoken to you directly." Mom had never acknowledged the birthday card or the Christmas card or any of the other occasional messages I sent. I had assumed they went straight into the trash. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "Just that you call regularly to check on her progress and that you seem like a lovely person." "I hope that was all right." "Yes, that's fine. Thank you for letting me know." It was a small thing, but it felt significant. Mom was curious about me. It wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation, but it was something. A week later, Dr. Abernathy called. "Your mother has agreed to accept a phone call from you," she said without preamble. "Would tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time work for you?" I rearranged my entire schedule. "Yes, that works perfectly." That night, I barely slept. What would I say to her after all this time? Should I bring up the past or focus on the present? Should I tell her about my life, or would that seem like bragging? By morning, I had a dozen different conversation scripts prepared in my head. None of them mattered. When the call connected, and I heard her voice for the first time in nearly 5 years, all my careful planning evaporated. "Hello, Sophia." Her voice was different, slightly slurred from the stroke, and missing its usual crisp authority. "Hi, Mom." To my horror, I immediately started crying. There was a long pause, filled only with the sound of my sniffling. Finally, she spoke again. "I understand you're paying for this place." Not exactly the warm reunion I'd hoped for, but at least she was talking to me. "Yes." "Why?" The question was blunt, her tone genuinely puzzled. "Because you needed help, and I could provide it." "After what I did?" I took a deep breath. "You're still my mother." Another long silence followed. I could hear her breathing, occasionally making small sounds as if she were about to speak, and then thinking better of it. "How is your husband?" she finally asked, pronouncing "your husband" carefully, as if testing out the phrase. "Ethan is good. He has tenure now. He's published 2 books on economic theory. And you? Are you still working at that small firm?" "I'm a senior advisor now. I manage our high-net-worth client portfolios." I couldn't help adding, "I'm doing quite well, actually." "Good. That's good." Her voice sounded tired suddenly. "I think I need to rest now." And that was it. 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Not exactly a heartfelt reconciliation, but it was a start. The calls became a monthly occurrence. Always brief, always slightly awkward, but gradually becoming less strained. Mom never apologized for cutting me off, and I never demanded an explanation. We existed in a strange limbo where the past was acknowledged but not discussed. 8 months into this new arrangement, Mom dropped a bombshell during one of our calls. "I'd like to see you," she said abruptly. "If you're willing to come." I was so stunned I couldn't speak for a moment. "Sophia? Are you there?" "Yes, sorry, I'm just surprised. Yes, of course I'll come." "When would you like me to visit?" "Next week? Tuesday, perhaps?" We arranged the details, and I hung up in a daze. That evening, I told Ethan about the invitation. "Do you want me to come with you?" he asked. I considered it. "No, I think this first visit should be just me. But thank you for offering." "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," I admitted. What if she just wants to see me to tell me off in person? What if this is some kind of trap? Ethan pulled me into a hug. "Then you'll handle it, just like you've handled everything else. But I don't think that's what this is. I think she's lonely and realizing what she threw away." The following Tuesday, I found myself once again in the tastefully bland waiting room at Ridgewood. My hands were sweating, and I kept checking my reflection in my phone's black screen, smoothing my hair, adjusting my blouse. A different aide than before came to escort me. "Your mother is in the sunroom," she explained as we walked. She's been looking forward to your visit all week. Had her hair done special yesterday. That small detail, Mom getting her hair done for my visit, nearly undid me. It was such a normal motherly thing to do, something the old Eleanor Morgan would have done before any important social engagement. The sunroom was a large, bright space filled with plants and comfortable seating. Several residents were scattered around, some reading, others dozing in the warm afternoon light. Mom was in her wheelchair near the windows, positioned to overlook the facility's gardens. She saw me enter and raised her right hand in a small wave. As I approached, I noticed she was wearing makeup and a nice blouse I didn't recognize. Her hair was indeed freshly styled, though much simpler than the elaborate coiffures she'd favored in her previous life. "Hello, Mom," I said, taking the seat beside her. "Sophia, you look well." Her eyes moved over me assessingly, an echo of her old scrutiny, but without the previous judgment. "So do you. The new hairstyle suits you." A hint of a smile touched her lips. Necessity rather than choice. Can't exactly manage my old style with this. She gestured to her weakened left side. We chatted awkwardly for a while about surface things, the facility, the weather, some bland gossip about people from our old Connecticut life. Then, unexpectedly, Mom changed the subject. "Tell me about your house. The nurse mentioned you have a garden?" So I told her about our 1920s craftsman with its creaky floors and character, about my vegetable garden and Ethan's home office lined with economics books. I showed her pictures on my phone, something I'd never imagined doing given her previous disdain for my choices. She studied each photo carefully, asking questions about the neighborhoods, the university where Ethan taught, the firm where I worked. It was the most interest she'd shown in my life since I was a teenager sharing my Princeton acceptance letter with her. As our visit drew to a close, Mom seemed to be working herself up to say something. She fidgeted with the blanket across her lap, avoided my eyes. "I should have called you when I first got sick," she finally said. "Before the stroke. There were warning signs. High blood pressure, a minor heart attack. I was too proud." It wasn't an apology, not exactly. But from Eleanor Morgan, it was the closest thing to an admission of fault I'd ever heard. "I understand pride," I said quietly. "I get it from somewhere, after all." She gave me a sharp look, then surprised me with a short, rusty laugh. "Yes, I suppose you do." I left with a promise to visit again in 2 months, the most my work schedule and finances would allow for cross-country trips. As the aide wheeled Mom back to her room, she turned her head and called over her shoulder, "Next time, bring pictures of that husband of yours. I should at least know what he looks like these days." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something neither of us had had in 5 years. A future with each other in it. The tentative peace between Mom and me continued to develop over the next year. My visits became more regular, every 6 weeks instead of every 2 months. Our phone calls extended beyond awkward small talk to something approaching real conversation. There were still boundaries and unspoken hurts, but we were finding our way toward a new kind of relationship. During my 3rd visit, Mom finally asked to see Ethan. "Bring him next time," she said, trying to sound casual. "If he wants to come, that is. I'd understand if he doesn't." When I relayed the invitation to Ethan, he didn't hesitate. "Of course I'll come. She's your mother." "She was horrible to you," I reminded him. He shrugged. "That was a long time ago. People change. Sometimes it takes something dramatic to make it happen, but they do change." So on my 4th visit, Ethan accompanied me. I was a nervous wreck on the flight, imagining all the ways the meeting could go wrong. Ethan, annoyingly, seemed completely calm. "How are you not freaking out right now?" I demanded as our plane began its descent. He smiled. "Because I'm not the one with 5 years of complicated history to navigate. I'm just the husband meeting his mother-in-law. Besides, I've got nothing to prove. We've built a good life without her approval. If she doesn't like me now, that's her problem, not ours." His confidence steadied me. He was right. We had built a good life. We were happy, successful in our careers, financially stable despite the additional burden of Mom's care. We had nothing to prove to her. When we arrived at Ridgewood, Mom was waiting in her room rather than the sunroom. She seemed nervous, adjusting and readjusting the items on her side table, fussing with her appearance in a way I hadn't seen during my solo visits. "Mom, this is Ethan," I said simply when we entered. Ethan stepped forward with a warm smile, extending his hand to her good right one. "It's nice to meet you properly, Mrs. Morgan." Mom studied him for a long moment before taking his hand. "Eleanor, please." "Mrs. Morgan makes me sound like my mother-in-law, and she was a terrible old bat." The tension broke. Ethan laughed, and even Mom smiled slightly. The visit went better than I could have hoped. Ethan was charming without being ingratiating, respectful without being deferential. He talked about his work in a way that was accessible but not condescending, asked Mom intelligent questions about her life before the stroke, and generally behaved like this was a normal family visit rather than a loaded reunion 5 years in the making. As we were leaving, Mom stopped me with a hand on my arm while Ethan stepped outside to take a work call. "He's not what I expected," she said quietly. "What did you expect?" She considered this. "Someone less substantial." "You were right about him." Coming from Eleanor Morgan, this was the equivalent of a gushing endorsement. I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. On the flight home, I rested my head on Ethan's shoulder. "Thank you for today." "For what?" "For being you. For not holding grudges. For making it easy." He kissed the top of my head. "Family is complicated, but it's worth the effort." 2 months after that visit, I received an unexpected package from Mr. Whitaker, Mom's attorney. Inside was a legal document and a handwritten note from Mom. The document was a revised will. Mom had changed her estate plans to leave everything to me upon her death. It wasn't a large sum anymore. Most of her assets had been liquidated to pay for medical care before I stepped in. But the gesture was significant. The note was brief. Typical Mom. "Sophia, I've updated my will. You should be aware of the changes. The stroke has made me reconsider certain decisions." "Eleanor." Not exactly flowing with emotion, but from Mom, it spoke volumes. During my next visit, I brought up the will. "You didn't have to do that, you know." She waved away my comment with her good hand. "It's only right. You're paying for everything now anyway. Consider it a very delayed inheritance." I smiled at her dry humor. "Still, thank you." She nodded, then changed the subject abruptly. "The physical therapist thinks I might be able to manage with a walker soon, at least for short distances." "That's wonderful. The doctors weren't sure you'd regain that much mobility." "Yes, well, I've always exceeded expectations." There was a flash of the old Eleanor Morgan steel in her voice. "I'd like to visit you in Michigan, when I'm stronger." The statement caught me completely off guard. "You want to come to Michigan? Is that so surprising? I've never seen your home except in pictures. I should see where my daughter lives." My throat tightened unexpectedly. "I'd like that." Mom nodded once, decisively. Then it settled. "By next summer, I'll be mobile enough. You can make the arrangements." Just like that, she had a goal. Something the medical staff had been trying unsuccessfully to give her for months. The idea of visiting Michigan, of seeing my life there, had accomplished what professional rehabilitation couldn't. 6 months later, true to her word, Mom had progressed to using a walker for short distances. Her speech had improved significantly, and while she would never regain full use of her left arm, she had adapted remarkably well. Dr. Abernathy was amazed by her progress. "Whatever you said to her during that visit really motivated her," she told me during our monthly update call. "She's been pushing herself harder in therapy, engaging more with other residents. It's like she's found a purpose." The purpose, as it turned out, was proving herself capable of making the trip to Michigan. Every phone call included an update on her progress, every visit a demonstration of new skills mastered. The woman who had once been embarrassed to be seen using a wheelchair now proudly showed off how she could transfer herself from chair to bed or navigate a short hallway with her walker. Exactly 1 year after Ethan's first visit to Ridgewood, Mom made the journey to Michigan. We arranged everything meticulously. A first-class flight with special assistance, a wheelchair-accessible rental car, adjustments to our guest room to accommodate her needs. I was a nervous wreck, triple-checking every detail. Ethan, as usual, took it all in stride. "It's going to be fine," he assured me the night before her arrival. "Your mother has survived a major stroke, relearned how to function, and rebuilt a relationship with her estranged daughter. I think she can handle a visit to our house." He was right, of course. Mom arrived with the same determination she'd shown in her rehabilitation. She inspected our home with interest rather than judgment, commented favorably on my garden, and even managed a genuine compliment about Ethan's home office. On the second night of her visit, while Ethan was at a faculty meeting, Mom and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset. We'd been making pleasant small talk, but a comfortable silence had fallen between us. "I was wrong," Mom said suddenly, her voice quiet but clear. "About Ethan. About your choices. About all of it." I turned to look at her, but she was still gazing at the sunset, her profile gilded by the fading light. "I was so focused on what I thought your life should be that I couldn't see the good life you were actually building," she continued. "I regret that. Very much." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from her, and certainly the most direct acknowledgement of her mistakes. "Thank you for saying that," I replied softly. She turned to me then, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you for paying for Ridgewood when you had every reason not to. For calling when I wouldn't speak to you. For visiting when I finally allowed it. For bringing Ethan to meet me. For making space in your life for me again, even after I tried to cut you out of mine." I reached over and took her hand. Her left one, the one with limited feeling and movement. She squeezed back with what little strength she had there. "We're family," I said simply. "It's complicated, but it's worth the effort." She smiled slightly, recognizing Ethan's words from a year ago, words I had shared with her during one of our phone calls. "Yes," she agreed, "complicated but worth it." As the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I realized we had found our way to something neither of us had expected. Not the perfect mother-daughter relationship of my childhood fantasies, nor the permanent estrangement of our worst moments, but something real and flawed and human. Something that, like us, was still evolving. My mother had cut me out of her inheritance because of my marriage. And yes, she had eventually discovered who paid for her nursing home. But the real discovery for both of us had been that some bonds, despite being stretched or even broken, could still be mended. Not perfectly, not without scars, but enough to build something new from the fragments of what was lost. That, I realized, was an inheritance worth more than any trust fund.